In this video we are reacting to Andy Lasagna or Lasagne. I love Andy, he's a great chef, he's a very nice guy, and I believe his lasagne will be good. Let's watch it together.
Italian dish is a household favorite all over the world.
Oh wow, I can see the green pasta sheets. Amazing, that's very traditional from Bologna.
Many versions, none of them are wrong, all of them are delicious, but your nonna's is always the best.
Yes, of course, nonna is always the best.
This is my version of a lasagna. Let's get stuck in. So we're going to start with the ragu. What we're going to need to start is a soffritto.
It's soffritto, Andy, soffritto.
Diced celery, some diced carrot, and some diced onion. Controversially, I also add garlic. Now, I'm not sure if
I know lots of people like to use garlic. You know, it's controversial for a ragu. You don't need it.
I'm not sure if that's traditional. Italians often get frustrated when
It's just that the garlic doesn't need to go in the ragu. It's just a flavor you don't need to add, okay? I understand you and many other people like it, so do it, okay, do it.
I have 500 grams of pork mince and 500 grams of beef mince. Duck works really, really well, but make sure you do it with something fatty like pork mince. Veal mince is kind of pretty traditional.
Yeah, I like the veal and pork. They go very well together.
Lamb mince works really well. Do it with something fatty like pork mince. Veal mince is kind of pretty traditional. Lamb mince works really well. Parmesan rind.
Pork, for me, it's a must. You always have to use pork because of the fat, the flavors. I love to use veal, but like Andy said, if you don't want to, you can use duck, beef, lamb, whatever.
Now you're going to use parmesan later on when we start layering it, so cut the rind off and we'll use that in a second.
That's amazing. I've seen Epicurious chef Lisa using Parmigiano rind for the tomato sauce, and I was very intrigued. So bravo, Andy. See, in this case, like you're using the Parmigiano rind, which gives flavors. You have the pork, you have already lots of ingredients. You don't need the garlic. Do you understand my point? Like, I'm not using garlic, which is fine, but you don't need to because you already have beautiful flavors there.
Tomato passata, which is tomato sauce.
Passata, it's tomato puree. So you boil the tomatoes and then you put them through the meal, and it's basically a tomato puree. It's not cooked, okay?
Tomato sauce, so not like the canned tomatoes. This is cooked tomatoes like you see the Italian families make once every year, and they bottle their sauce for the rest of the year.
Andy, I'm in Australia, come to my house. We're gonna do a family tomato sauce this year in January, and the more people come, the better. We're gonna hopefully have at least 50 kilos of Roma tomatoes and make the sauce. If you come, you film it. The video goes on your channel, I'm happy.
And of course, I didn't forget the wine. Now you can use red wine or white wine. I like to use a red wine. Salt and pepper, olive oil, that's pretty much it. Temperature on high, olive oil. All right, once you get a bit of heat in your pan, we're gonna add our onions, carrot, and celery.
You're probably wondering, why is he using a small saucepan that is not too high? It's because he's doing a video, so for you to be able to see, he needs to do this, okay?
Decent pinch of salt. We'll just sweat that.
I don't understand this salt situation in sofrito. Still don't agree, you don't need salt in sofrito. Salt goes in the ragu.
You don't want like heaps of color, but you do want it to start breaking down. Time to add the garlic. And I'm actually gonna add another drizzle of olive oil.
See, he's using extra virgin olive oil. I like that you put garlic now, because the garlic doesn't take long to cook. It takes about 30 seconds. What I would suggest is to add a splash of water as well.
All right, we're gonna pull this sofrito out. Make sure you get all of it too, otherwise it'll burn in the next step. I like to try and break up my meat a little bit before I put it in.
That's a very important step. See, Nonna always does this as well. It basically helps to get nice pieces of meat so that when you have a lasagna, you don't have massive chunks of meat.
Plate, you can kind of just slide it in. Season with salt, and then just leave it.
See, you're putting the salt now, so you don't need salt in sofrito. You got salt now, but you're gonna add more salt later in the sauce.
Leave it, let that come right up to temperature and start getting some good color on it before we start moving it around. We can start breaking it up a bit.
All right, this is an interesting topic, okay? There is no right and wrong, I guess. You cook the meat as you like it, okay? Because we are cooking the sauce for a long time, a bolognese needs 4 hours minimum. And then you add the sauce. Simply because that meat needs to stay moist.
All this nice color. All that stuff is delicious flavor. You kind of want that there. Once you got that pretty well broken up, get your wine in there.
What I will do is use the wooden spoon or maybe like a potato masher to kind of break the meat a little bit more. And adding the wine right now is the way to do it. That's what you do.
And this is the point where you can scrape all that beautiful fond off the bottom of the pan. I can see here this wine's reduced. We'll add our sofrito back. Make sure you get all that beautiful oil off the bottom too. And then I'm gonna give it another decent seasoning of salt. We haven't put
A lot of salt, guys, you understand? You got salt on the sofrito, salt on the meat, and salt again.
heaps in there just yet. Don't go too crazy, but
I think you spend too much time with Uncle Roger, Andy. I'm not saying, you know, the MSG situation, the salt, you like it, do you?
okay, that pan is almost completely dry. You don't want it to be 100% dry.
I don't really want to get to that point, not.
Time to add our passata. And just use a little bit of water to make sure you get all that tomato. Now I had my spoon just then, jeez. Control the temperature. You don't want this rapidly boiling, you just want this simmering. The only other thing left is our piece of Parmesan rind. Put that in there, cover this up, little simmer, 1 hour minimum, 2 hours is better, 3 hours is incredible, 4 hours if you love your family all that much.
Yeah, that's right, beautiful said, beautiful said. No way you do it for 2 hours. I made a mistake too, and my friend David from Bologna, he reacted to my bolognese made in 2 hours, and it's not right. 4 hours minimum.
I highly encourage you to make your own pasta. So I'm gonna make like a spinach infused pasta. So I've got 250-ish grams of baby spinach, big pot of boiling water. I'm gonna season that really well. Then I got a bowl with lots of ice and water in it. And all we're gonna do is dump this spinach in here.
I like that he's making spinach pasta sheets, which is the original way to make lasagna in Bologna.
It goes like a really dark green. Let it drain off straight and shock it into the cold water. Pull all the spinach out and let it drain in a rack or in a
Bravo Andy, I really like.
or in a spider. I don't know why we call these things spiders. Sure that's not their official name.
Oh, that's like a colander. It's the Mako colander from Marion Grasby, Marion's Kitchen. I highly recommend you Marion Grasby wok.
And then we're gonna squeeze as much water out of this as we can.
It's very important. You don't want too much water in the spinach.
All right, break that up into the bowl. And then I like to blend this, but if you don't have a blender, don't stress. Just chop this really fine.
I think the blending is the best thing to do, Andy. Bravo. Yes, you can chop it with a knife, but the best thing to do, it really is to blend the spinach.
Crack your eggs into something else first, because then if you do get a bit of shell in there, you can take it out instead of ruining this.
Andy, you must have watched my video. This is what my nonna does all the time. Use a bowl to crack the egg and make sure you don't have the little egg shell in the mix, because you don't want to eat that.
Take it out instead of ruining this.
Oh, see? That's what happens, see?
Yeah, rightio.
Oh, okay.
Unbiased review, can confirm, works well. The other good thing about this pasta is that you don't need any fancy equipment apart from a rolling pin. Then our egg spinach.
So you did a very good well, which is important. See how nice and big it is. Now you put the mix in there, which is great. You got the eggs already in there. You have the mix with the spinach. Looks fantastic so far.
Spinach in the center. Oh, how good does that look? So that's the difference between using a blender and hand cutting it.
I think it looks fantastic. I think what he's doing is beautiful. What I like the most is that he actually used the entire egg. 2 entire eggs.
Start working your flour in. Pinch of salt.
You like the salt too much, Andy. Never put salt or extra virgin olive oil in your pasta. You don't have to. Don't abuse the usage of salt.
I like to use a dough cutter. Start kind of chopping it in. Just be patient. If you do need to add a little bit of more water, then there's no issue with that.
Basically, what he said about adding water, it's right, but way too early. Basically, you need to play. Use your hands, play. You add the water only towards the end, okay? When the dough is way too dry until you get the bowl, and now you keep going. See, there's a bowl there. This is the time that you really need hard for the next 5 to 10 minutes.
And if anything, this dough feels like it's going to need a generous dusting on the board for it to not to stick, but that's okay. It feels like that's probably a little bit wetter, and that's because of the moisture in the spinach.
Maybe you didn't get the ratio right of the recipe. I have a video on my YouTube channel how to make a green spinach pasta, and I highly recommend you to follow the recipe because I'm very specific with the amount you have to use.
So I can go pretty generous because I know it's probably going to need all that flour, but we're going to start kneading. You don't need to knead this until it's nice and smooth, which is probably going to take about 8 to 10 minutes. Kneading action is pretty simple. It's using the palm, so you end up with like a sandwich, and go again. Sometimes you can get 2 kind of swipes at it, if that makes sense.
This is a technique I use. There are so many different techniques out there, but this is what I do. Push forward, and then bring it back, push forward, bring it back, and rotate.
All right, there you go. We're just going to rest that for half an hour. half an hour to an hour before we roll it out. You can rest it in the...
Okay, you don't have to put it in a plastic bag like that, okay? First, you can just cover it with a salad bowl. You got one behind you. You can put in glad wrap or like plastic wrap and in the fridge. Basically, the reason why you rest it is so that you give a little bit of time for the pasta to create the gluten, okay?
As long as your total process of making this is under 2 hours, you're fine, because I know there's raw egg in this. If you think like it's going to take you a bit longer than that, then when you're resting it, just chuck it in the fridge.
He's right. You have to put it in the fridge if you don't make the pasta straight away, okay? But I would say 24 hours is the most, because what happens is the pasta after that, it starts to become black because of the fresh egg.
If you do rest it for more than sort of 3 hours or something, and that core temperature is right down cold, you're gonna let it come out and kind of come up to room temperature before you start rolling out. And that just helps with us rolling it out. Dust it well. We're gonna do what's called a lamination first before we really start rolling it out. Rolling pin here. You can do.
Oh wow, that's a professional rolling pin. That's a pastaio rolling pin.
So the first lamination, we're just gonna roll it out.
Guys, it's not easy to use a big rolling pin. It might look easier to you, but it's not. It's easier with the small one. So what he's doing, it's tab. So bravo.
And trying to keep it kind of the same shape. Dust any of that excess off. And we're gonna fold it like an envelope. So over, roll again. We're going to laminate that once more, and then we'll start rolling it out. So if you do have a pasta roller, feel free to use that. A little bit more flour over the top.
Guys, this is a long process. This is going to take Andy a long time, so well done.
So roll once, twice, 3 times, turn your dough. Once.
We do make fresh pasta when you come on my tours in Italy, and it's one of the most beautiful things that we do during the week. And all my guests, you know, they make pasta like this using a rolling pin, and it's fascinating because everyone can really feel the connection with the pasta. That's what Andy is doing right now. In this case, the lasagna would taste a lot better because it really feels the love that you're giving it.
3 times, move your dough. Flip it over every now and then. Incredibly impressive. They've been doing it a bit longer than I have. 5 or 6 ideally layers of pasta. So if we go, yeah, that's 60, and that's 70, 20. We have our 6 layers of pasta. All right.
Right, okay, so you're actually cutting the pasta like that. Ah, okay, interesting.
Time to cook these. All right, we've got boiling salted water. In they go. Just do 1 sheet at a time for 2 minutes. Then I've got a bowl of a bowl of iced water.
I'm glad it's not salted.
That we're going to plunge it into after to stop it from cooking. Use a clean tea towel between them. Really important that these stay nice and dry.
Very important, yes. It looks nice, it looks very nice, very nice. What happens is, you know the extra flour that you had on top of the pasta sheets? That extra flour will actually go at the bottom of the pot when you boil it, okay? So don't be afraid to use flour, you know, to stretch the dough.
Okay, final thing to make, the bechamel, before we start assembling. 50 grams of butter. Let that melt before we add our flour. 50 grams of flour as well. Once the butter's melted, flour.
Beautiful, the bechamel is so important for lasagna. You guys need to have lasagna with bechamel. If you don't, you miss out.
And whisk. We're just gonna whisk this and cook this until the flour's cooked. It's probably gonna take 1 minute, 2 minutes, not that long.
No, very, very quick.
Smelling like cookie dough. Add it in 2 goes. Add half of it, whisk, then add the other half.
Yeah, you basically want to add the milk a little bit at a time. Very slow process. Bechamel is a quick sauce, but the milk needs to go in slowly.
Make sure you get in the corners so that you don't have any roux kind of stuck there. We're going to simmer this for as long as it takes really until we get this consistency we're looking for. So we've got some fresh nutmeg, maybe a quarter of a nutmeg.
You use as much nutmeg as you want. The bechamel should be very delicate and it should not take over all the other flavors, okay?
Pinch of salt.
I'm good with the salt. You have to put the salt, by the way. But yes, it's a lot of salt in this recipe.
Fresh ground pepper.
The pepper is personal, okay? I think it's too much for me.
As much or as little as you like. Once you get to kind of this consistency, turn the heat off and then you're just going to keep whisking it. That didn't even take that long, it took about 5 minutes. This has been about 2.5 hours now and it's looking good. The reason we keep the lid on is so that it doesn't dry out too quickly.
See how the sauce is not ready? And I know this because I made a mistake, like I mentioned, cooking in 2 hours. That's not a ragu. That's not how the ragu for lasagna should be. Too much water on the top, and for the first 2 hours with the lid on, great. I'm not saying anything wrong to Andy. Andy, it's fine. This is gonna be a delicious ragu.
Here we are looking for. So pretty happy with that. I'm gonna mix that through. One last little step that I want to do before it's ready to go. which we'll do now. That is about 100 mils of milk. Seems kind of strange, but...
No, it's not strange. It's strange that you're adding the milk now. As you can see, the ragu is very wet, so it doesn't need the milk, okay? Adding the milk now, it's useless.
I'm gonna leave the lid off now too. It smells delicious. Meaty, and it looks all shiny and velvety. Have a little taste. That needs nothing else.
Just a few more hours of cooking.
Last thing we need to talk to is cheese. Pretty simple. Parmesan, Parmigiano Reggiano. I like to use a fine microplane grater, mozzarella, and a box grater. Then we can start assembly.
It's best to use fresh mozzarella, but the mozzarella I use is called scamorza in Italy. It's like a dry mozzarella. It's actually pretty good too, because it melts beautifully when you cook it in the oven. I prefer fresh.
First layer, ragu. Don't need heaps. Nice and evenly spread out. 3 spoons.
I like he didn't use any herbs in the ragu, so bravo.
Pasta. Now this looks a bit wide, so we'll cut it down a bit. Tomato sauce.
I thought he measured them before, okay, but I like what he's doing. It's just that because you did this process with the pasta sheets, I will be more precise of the size, so you don't have the lasagna sheet hanging on the side, like, you know, going up too much. You don't want that.
Tomato sauce, or red sauce, meat sauce, whatever you call it. Bechamel, mozz.
Bellissimo, bellissimo. This is beautiful what he's doing. Bellissimo, bellissimo.
So the last layer, we'll do pasta, and then we're going to do just straight passata, straight.
Oh, you watch my video. You watch my video, Andy. No one, and I mean no one does this. This is my recipe. This is how I do it. Lots of people put cheese on top. Lots of people put the ragu right on top. Even in Italy, everywhere. This is my lasagna recipe by adding the passata, adding the basil sauce on top without the ragu. It's my dish, it's my recipe. Andy, you got this from me. Come on, tell me. Nobody else does it.
And at the moment, we're not going to put any cheese on it either.
I want the credit. Come on, Andy. This is me. I do this. Everyone else put cheese right now on top, right now, even in Italy. So please, say it. Vincenzo, I got this from you. I deserve this.
Just loosely cover that in foil. The oven's on 180 degrees. I'm gonna bake that for half an hour.
He's gonna put Parmigiano now, you watch. No mozzarella.
Let's have a look. It's not finished, don't forget that. We're gonna take a leaf out of Camilla's book. If you don't know who Camilla is, she's a fictional character from my favorite TV show of all time, Sopranos. Rest of the cheese.
That's interesting, he's using that much basil. I've never seen that. And that's a lot of cheese too.
For 15 minutes before we turn it to grill or broil if you're in the US. All right, I suppose we better cut some.
Oh, it looks very good. It looks very, very nice.
Lasagna.
Look at that, look at that.
Now the truth is that you should really let a lasagna sit for like half an hour, and they're actually better the next day reheated. They kind of keep their shape of it.
100%, 100%. You want the lasagna to be, not to serve too hot. I like to say serve the lasagna warm, but I guess you can't wait to eat it because it's so beautiful.
Guarantee you, they taste the same.
It becomes floppy because it's too hot. There's nothing wrong with that. You can't wait to eat it. Of course it's like that. But if you honestly wait half an hour, it won't be that floppy.
They taste the same.
I've got a thing that I can eat lasagna the day after cold, and I think I enjoy it even more. Is that crazy?
Delicious. Meaty, cheesy, the tomato sauce with this slightly acidic really cuts through all that fattiness. The pasta's cooked really well and you don't even really taste the spinach at all, so great way to sneak some veggies in on the kids. But that's a classic for a reason. Thank you.
This was beautiful, it was good. Well done, Andy. You have done it again. Andy, you're a very good cook. Just a few things to tweak, you know, definitely use less salt, but apart from that, it's beautiful. Please tell me you watch my lasagna video, because that beautiful basil tomato sauce on top, that's my signature technique method. Thank you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next Vincenzo's Plate video recipe. E ora si mangia Vincenzo's Plate. I want lasagna right now.